Today, we're going to dive into one of the most incredible books ever written, Ibn Khaldun's 14th century masterpiece, the Muqaddimah. And trust me, this is so much more than just a history book. This was an attempt to create a whole new science for understanding human civilization itself. And it all started with a pretty harsh take on his own field.
Wow, okay, that quote is intense. But it gets right to the heart of what Ibn Khaldun was trying to fix. He wasn't just talking about ignorance in general. No, he was taking direct aim at the lazy, uncritical way that historians of his time were doing their jobs.
Yeah, you heard that right. For one of the greatest minds in history, the actual study of history was a complete disaster. He saw it as this messy jumble of unverified stories, myths, and flat-out propaganda that people just passed along without a second thought. For him, it had become a field where nonsense was king.
So, what was so wrong with how people were writing history back then? Well, Ibn Khaldun was a methodical guy, and he laid out the problems with shocking clarity.
You know, what's crazy about this is how modern it all sounds. He saw historians just blindly accepting what they were told, never questioning tradition. He called them out for filling their work with baseless assumptions and just sloppy errors. It honestly sounds like a critique of misinformation on the internet today. And without any real critical thought, he basically concluded that the whole job had become, in his words, a stupid occupation.
But here's the thing about Ibn Khaldun. He wasn't just a critic. He was a builder. And to really get his revolutionary idea, you first have to understand the man himself. His life was every bit as epic as his work.
Born in Tunis, this guy was no ivory tower academic. Not at all. He was a judge, a politician, a diplomat. He served all these different rulers across North Africa and Spain. His career was a total roller coaster. He got thrown in prison, he was exiled, he was constantly navigating these dangerous political games. He even had a face-to-face meeting with the terrifying world conqueror, Tamerlane. All of this gave him this raw, street-level view of how power and history really work.
And he took all of that raw, real-world experience, and he poured it into this one incredible book, the Muqaddimah. Now, this was technically just the introduction to a much bigger history of the world he was writing, but in it, he proposed something that was absolutely radical for his time.
He called it Ilm el-Umran, which basically means the science of social organization. His argument was a game changer. He said, look, it's not enough to just check if a source is trustworthy. You have to ask a bigger question. Is the story you're being told even possible based on the laws of how societies function? It's like you wanted to create a kind of physics for civilization, a toolkit you could use to see if history made sense.
And right at the absolute center of this new science, he identified one single, powerful, invisible force that he believed was the true engine of all history.
He called it asabiya. Now, it's a little tricky to translate perfectly, but think of it as group feeling or social cohesion. It's the social glue. It's that invisible bond that holds a group together, their shared sense of purpose, their loyalty to each other, that collective will that makes them act as one. For Ibn Khaldun, this was everything.
And here's where it gets really brilliant. He lays out exactly how this force works. So a group, usually living in some harsh environment, develops this really powerful asabiya. That bond makes them strong enough to go out, conquer more settled people, and start their own dynasty. But then, what happens? They get comfortable, they achieve luxury, and that very social glue that got them there in the first place starts to dissolve, which sets them up for their own collapse. It's a cycle he saw everywhere.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit and see how this one idea powers his entire theory about the rise and fall of civilizations. He saw all of human history as this constant tug-of-war between two totally opposite ways of life.
On one side, you have the desert, or a Bedouin life. This life is hard. It's built on necessity. It makes people tough, brave, and most importantly, it forges that super strong group feeling, that asabiya. And on the other side, you have city life. It's defined by luxury, comfort, and specialized jobs. But this lifestyle makes people more individualistic, a little softer, and dependent on the system for protection. Simply put, the desert creates asabiya, the city destroys it.
And this leads to one of his most mind-blowing insights, something that feels like a total paradox. He says that the very goal of any civilization, to achieve that comfortable, luxurious city life, is the exact same thing that guarantees its eventual downfall and corruption. The peak of success literally contains the seeds of its own destruction.
He even broke this decay down into this predictable 4-generation cycle. It's almost like a formula. Generation 1, the builders. They know the struggle, they know what it took. Their kids, Generation 2, are the followers. They heard all the stories, but they didn't live it themselves. By the third generation, the imitators, that memory is totally gone. They're just coasting on tradition. And generation 4, the destroyers. They've lost all connection to the values that built everything, and the whole thing comes crashing down. You've probably heard a modern version of this. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. Ibn Khaldun laid that out almost 700 years ago.
So, okay, why are we still talking about a book written in the 14th century? Why does any of this matter now? Well, because his insights feel absolutely timeless, and honestly, they're staggering in how much they see into the future.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The famous 20th century historian Arnold Toynbee called the Muqaddimah the greatest work of its kind ever created. I mean, that's about as high as praise gets. But when you really look at what Ibn Khaldun did, you see why.
I mean, just look at this list. We're talking about the father of sociology, the father of historiography, even a founder of economics, all centuries before those fields even had names. He was analyzing social cohesion, the value of labor, supply and demand, taxes. He was trying to find the patterns and laws in history when most people were just writing down lists of kings and battles. The man was truly, unbelievably ahead of his time.
And that brings us to the final really provocative question that his work just forces you to ask. If Ibn Khaldun is right, if civilizations really are subject to these natural cycles of growth and decay, all driven by social cohesion and the poison of luxury, then where are we, our civilization, in that cycle today? It's a heavy question from the 14th century that feels more urgent right now than ever before.